Welcome to Yeukai Business Show, UK's premier business show where we feature business thought leaders, high achievers, and industry experts. Today's episode is brought to you by World Outsourcing Solutions Limited, a company that specializes in helping executive business owners with virtual assistant services and business growth systems. Here's your host.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. It's Trevor here with you today on this episode, and I'm joined by our guest, Nela. Now, let me ask everyone before we start, do you struggle to get your business to stand out? What is it that makes you different from your competitors? Can you answer these questions? These are the good things that we need to ask ourselves regularly. And it's very apt today that we think about these questions because Nela's a visual communications designer with over 15 years experience building brands and digital platforms. She runs a boutique branding consultancy, Nela Dunato Art and Design, and is also the author of the book, The Human-Centered Brand. So welcome, Nela Dunato.
Thank you. Thank you, Trevor. I'm so glad to be here and to talk about branding because I seem to not be able to stop talking about it.
That's a good sign. No, it's a good sign. You've obviously hit your niche, your gifting, something you're passionate about. So that's really good to know. Always nice to meet people like that. And we can learn a lot from you. So maybe just to kick us off, tell us a little bit about your background or your journey that's brought you this far.
Yeah, well, I started on this journey pretty early. I was always interested in the visual arts and computer graphics, and I started teaching myself graphic design when I was about 15. So I never actually studied design or marketing or anything like that, but I had this passion that kind of pushed me over the years into that direction. And when I was 19, I started freelancing as a designer. And in my early 20s, I got my first full-time job in an agency. And that was very interesting because I learned a lot on the job. I was essentially given tasks that were beyond my knowledge at the time, but then I had to learn how to do that. And it is awesome when you can do that on the job. You're essentially paid to learn. So that was the positive side of the job. But there were, of course, also some negatives, which is that I didn't really, after I learned how to do things, after I kind of developed some of my own expertise, I realized that I don't really like how things are done in the agency. I didn't really enjoy working with those clients and those projects. I just found it all rather boring. So I realized that I need to make a change and I wanted to go back to freelancing because I really enjoyed that while I was doing it. So in 2013, I launched my own business and, it's been a journey, definitely had some ups and downs, but I did not look back. It's been the best decision for my career and it has helped me to evolve even more, to focus on branding, to develop like a body of work that I was able to then publish in the form of a book, as you mentioned. So that's been the journey. Obviously there was some things from my early years that have pushed me into this direction, but also I learned a lot from people around me. I learned a lot from my clients, and really my clients were the main inspiration behind my book and the work that I do right now.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good. Sounds like, at some point the entrepreneur inside of you was sort of crying to get out and eventually broke free, which is always good to hear.
Yeah, when you're a creative person, I think it's really difficult to get that just put into a box, which agencies usually ask you to do. I mean, I'm not all agencies, but, typical agencies. So for me, it was really more about having that creative freedom. And the entrepreneurial side is, the business side came more difficult. I need to learn all those skills. But I think I'm really just an example that it can be learned, even if you're not like a natural talent for business skills. If you're, if you take it seriously, then it's doable.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a lesson, isn't there? It's learning the balance between the skills you have to learn yourself and then leveraging the services of other people. But when you're starting out, I think it's actually quite helpful to get an overview of the kind of things that are involved in running a business. But also not get so locked into all the activity that you slowly die and you don't do anything else other than your business. So I understand where you're coming from on that. So let's talk about branding for a bit then. because I can learn some things on this, I'm sure. There's a few, if not everybody out there, that may need to refresh their branding or just rethink about branding. So what would you say are some of the fundamentals that a business would need to think about to stand out?
Well, first, the way that I teach people how to do branding is to start from the core, start from your, as I call it, the essence of branding or your foundation. And that is your core values. And the core values are the why behind your business. And I think that's what really pushes our to go into entrepreneurship. Because what is the reason that you decided to be an entrepreneur as opposed to just working the same thing in a job for someone else? Certainly there was something that is only achievable through your vehicle of your own business. So that's something that you have to have in mind, because your values are going to inform not only your business decisions, but also how you interact with your clients, how you interact with your teammates, who you attract. And I think having those core values really prominent is going to help you bring those people toward you who are going to be most impacted by your work, who are going to get the most benefit out of your work, and who you're simply going to enjoy working with, because that is the point of having a business, enjoying doing your work. And I think that when you have these matching values with your clients and your audience, that you get the most fulfillment out of your work. So to me, that is the first step that you do. And, people usually ask me, how do I find my values? Well, you find it by journaling about what inspired you to do your work. And something I also say to people, okay, think about what bothers you about how this work is usually done, how you want to change your industry for the better. Because usually we find some practices in an industry that we think are, either unethical or they don't give results, or something. They just bother us. We want to do the opposite. So think about the opposite, and that will point you toward what is actually true for you, what you want to bring, what is this change that you want to bring to your field. So I think that is a really good way to find your values. And, values can be a very wide meaning, like they can be, freedom and community and health and things like that. But you can also have very focused values, like, exceptional service or something like that. So it really depends on, what you're focusing on and what your goals and what your mission is, what your values are going to be. But to me, that's always the first step. And then you build the rest of your brand on that. And the whole process is going to be a lot easier because you'll have this starting point that is quite powerful and that weaves through all of your other elements of branding. So I only talked about one element, but that's because I think it's the most important. But then we can go on to the other ones, which are also important. And that is, it's often called in the business terminology, unique value proposition. But usually how I like to explain it to people is like, it's your secret sauce. What makes you different from everyone else? How can you explain in a single sentence how what you do is different from what everyone else in your field is doing? Because that is truly the way that you show to your potential clients why they should work with you as opposed to someone else. I mean, not should. Basically, you're not trying to push anyone, but you're trying to give them a very appealing reason why they would want to work with you. And you're going to see that in people when they're reaching out to you. I say just ask people why they're reaching out to you. Ask people why they chose to work with you. And they're going to give you a hint into what that is that makes your work special. Even if you're not sure about it yourself, business owners are usually very modest. When you ask people what's so special about you, they're like, I don't know, no, nothing is special. No, there is something special. There is something different. And usually, when I work with people, I have to pull it out of them because maybe we're not able to see it in ourselves, but other people are able to see it in us. So also, I like to think about it like, what is it that is a unique blend of your skills and interests that is making your work different from someone who maybe had the same kind of education, but doesn't have all the same skills and interests that you do. And that's how you kind of package your unique offers into this form that is quite different from everything else. Even though, you may be a lawyer, you may be a real estate agent, you may be a fashion designer or a photographer, but still there's something about your work that is different. And that is going to make all the difference in your ability to make more money. Because if you're not able to prove to other people that you're different in some way, then how are you going to be able to raise your prices above the average? How are you going to be able to prove that you are, that your services are a premium offering? There has to be something to hold that premium value. And to me, that is this ability to prove to people how your work is unique.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's finding our unique style, isn't it? Like how we would, from what you're saying, how we would express ourselves, partly through, so it's underpinned by the values, and then it's partly through our experiences, our skills, but also, our interests as well, isn't it? There are generally everybody, I was going to say, is an expert. Everybody is in the process of developing in one or two key fields, I would say. Some people more, but generally there's usually one or two things that are the primary passions that people have. And it's learning to develop those, but I guess also trying to express that in a way that reaches the people that you want to work with, isn't it?
Yeah, because
in that language.
Yeah, well, the way I'm looking at this is like if your core values are all about you and what you want to bring into the business, this unique value proposition is about how you help others. So this is where you go out into the world and actually make it a business, because you can have core values as just a regular person. You don't have to be a business owner to have core values. But then if you want to be a business, if you want to make it profitable, this is where you have to think about what others need and how are you going to make what others need, match that need with your unique expertise. So to find this match in the marketplace with what you have to offer and make that, a valuable exchange for all the parties involved.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So would you say not being specific enough is probably the biggest mistake that most companies make?
I think companies think that they need to reach out to the biggest audience to make, to capture the most value. But I don't think that necessarily works, especially if you're a small business. Like if you are someone who is serving like a few dozen clients a year, or maybe hundreds of buyers. We're not talking about millions. Like if you are Coca-Cola or Pfizer or someone, then you obviously have a tremendous audience, potential, audience. But when you are a business that is serving a smaller number of clients, then you need to think about specificity, and that is what is your target demographic, and not only in the demographic terms like what are their, age, gender, education level, the usual marketing terms, how we form our client avatars, but also what is their worldview? What are their habits? What do they want out of life? And what do they want out of this service that they're looking to buy or a product? Like, what are their motivations to buy this specific thing? And then you can have people from two vastly different demographics. You can have someone who is retired and you can have someone who is in their early 20s. But if they have the same passion for, say, motorcycles, you can sell them your motorcycles because there's this worldview that connects them. And probably these two people, if they met somewhere at a motorcycle festival, they would have wonderful time together and talk and find a lot of things in common because it's the worldview that connects them, not, the gender and age gap and culture gap. That's all like artificial. But really what brings us together are those values and just the way of looking at the world around us. And that is what we need to be very specific about when we are trying to reach our clients or customers. Who are these people? What are their lives like, and where do we fit into their life? And how do we make their life easier? And that's when you learn that you can't help everyone. You just can't.
Yeah.
Because it's very expensive to try to market to everyone, to try to sell to everyone, to try to create a product for every single type of potential customer, or to offer a service to every potential kind of client. You need to focus on something that you do best, and then see, okay, who are the people that are most likely to appreciate what we do best, and do not stay away from the core. So you need to be focused on the people who are able to appreciate what you do best, and not do the things that you do slightly worse, so you can capture more people around that other offering. No, your offering always must be something that you do best, because that is a powerful brand. You're not going to be a powerful brand if you're creating all these other products that are not as good. That's going to dilute your brand, ruin your brand. People are not going to be impressed by that. So really focus on, who are the people who share our values, who need the benefits that we provide, who appreciate this unique offer that we are giving them, and who appreciates your personality and your approach. So how you present your offers, how you talk, how you write, those are all elements of your brand voice, which I haven't mentioned earlier, but it is also quite important. And so who are these people who are going to respond to your brand voice, who are going to be attracted to that? That's also a big part of how you find your right people to enjoy your products and services.
Yeah. No, that's really good. I like the way you put that. Yeah, that's really good. So is that in essence what your book is about? Or
yes. Yeah, here we're kind of distill that into a bit of a shorter explanation. But yes, that is really, what I wanted to do with the book is to explain this step-by-step process, because I found that some other books and explanations I found out there, I found them backwards, actually. I found them that they do not work for very small businesses, because those are usually my clients. I don't work with huge businesses. I work with, businesses that have, and organizations for, up to 50 people. Usually, I don't think I've worked with someone who had a bigger organization than that. And usually, the famous books are written for Coca-Cola and, IBM and Apple and companies like that. So I want to help businesses who are not Coca-Cola and IBM. I want to help those who are, what we call mom and pop shops, but also nonprofits who are essentially doing good work, but they're also offering a service, or creatives of any kind who often find it hard to scale, because some services simply cannot be scaled. So how do you brand that? Well, you brand it by emphasizing the personality of the brand, and by putting the core values at the center, and by radiating outwards, instead of just trying to reverse engineer what you should be, how you should act, how you should talk, to appeal to some ideal demographic that supposedly, has a lot of money and will love buying your thing if you can only find a way to speak to them in a way that they will appreciate. But I don't think that's the right way to do it. So I basically just developed these steps that is essentially it's like a class. It's like a workshop. You do the step 1, and then you do the step 2, and then you do the step 3, and then you get to the end, and voila, you have a brand and you don't even know you did it. So yeah, that's basically the same that we talked about. That's the gist of the book, essentially. Yes.
Yeah, no, that sounds really good. I like the way you make it very accessible to people, to maybe whether they've looked at marketing a lot or not, or maybe they're listening thinking, yeah, I really need to move that up the list of priorities now. There's something that they can get hold of straight away and start working through the process. I think that's really good. Maybe then a step further on from that, for people that have looked at your book, they've done their homework as in the steps of the book, but they want to bring you on board to help them sort of roll it out within the organization. Just to share a little bit of what would the process of that look like?
Yeah. Well, the process, how I work with other businesses is that the first we do this brand strategy part, which is essentially what the book is about. But some people do read the book and go through it through themselves. And then we do like a shorter consulting session where we kind of just clear things up where they might have had some issues figuring things out on their own. Or for people who have not read the book or want to work this with a larger team, we have like a team workshop, which is like a whole day thing where we all get together or virtually, as the case may be at the time when things are happening. So we do this whole process, but it's a bit more, deeper. It's a bit more intense, and we do it like all in one day, which sometimes is a little difficult, but I've done these workshops a couple times, and people get a lot out of them when they do it, even if it's a bit intense, maybe to do it all in one go. And then when we have that strategy, that is our roadmap for how we are going to portray it into the visual and the marketing side of things. So we think about, okay, first we need to create the visual brand identity, which is the logo, a brand style guide, the guidelines of what kind of colors to use, what kind of fonts to use. Do we have some kind of textures and icons and patterns, and what style of photography we use? Like that. That's the sort of thing that we decide on for what was going to be used in all of their marketing materials. And then most of my clients do that. We create a website that is also following all of these essential steps that we outlined. So does the website communicate what they wanted to communicate? We really do it from the aesthetic side, but also the usability side, the language side, how they're going to actually explain what their services are, how are we going to present them, in what order, how much explanation is needed. That is all the part of the whole website development phase. And also some businesses also need some other collateral, like, maybe brochures, presentation slides, depending on what their business is, depending on what they are offering to their clients and customers. Then we may need to work on some other parts of these, some other graphics. Some people do live events, so we need maybe some graphics for the event space or something like that. Some people work purely online, so we're usually working things with social media, their YouTube channel and stuff like that. So that's all based on what the clients need.
Yeah. So you go into the detail more of, because you mentioned in part of your experience is digital platforms as well. So
yes.
Do you get hands-on involved with the website setup, or is it more getting the draft of the ideas and then you outsource that?
It depends on the complexity of the website. If it's something that I can do on my own, and I started off designing websites. So my first freelancing gigs were making websites. So I do know how to make websites, but if it requires some very complex custom development, then I usually bring someone else into the project that is a website developer. And then they create these custom functionalities that are required for this particular client. But if it's something that can be created, on the WordPress platform, using maybe some plugins and so on, usually I can handle that on my own since I do have plenty of experience. But if it's something more complex, or if they require some copywriting or content writing, I do have friends, colleagues of many, many years who are able to jump in on that. So I don't have like a team that is formed the entire time. I don't have employees, but I do have colleagues, and we work together in this fluid motion. Like if someone needs help with design, they bring me onto their project. If I need help, with copywriting and web development, I bring people onto my project. And it's so, we share the love that way.
Yeah. No, it's a good way of doing it. Yeah, just bring in associates as and when you need to. Yeah, that makes sense. Just from a curiosity perspective, and you were talking about like you working out the brand and the colours and the logo and all of that. what would be some of the pointers that would help you pick the colours? Say maybe there's 3 or 4 primary brand colours. What determines what colour fits what? If that's not a silly question.
No, it's not a silly question at all. So that's actually some of the questions that I get the most, especially, when I taught graphic design to students. That was usually like, how do I know which colors to choose? Well, there are certain color meanings and color associations that are present in certain cultures. So, in Western European cultures, there are certain colors that mean a specific thing. There's also in certain countries, a color can mean a specific thing. It can be positive or a negative meaning. Also, there are the way any color, any hue can have a shade, a lighter value or a darker. So the lighter are the pastel colors, and those are usually very gentle. So, we might consider them feminine, or we might relate them to childhood and children. And the darker colors, we relate to something serious. We relate them to business, perhaps. When you look at the colors of the business suits, they're all dark gray, dark blue, sometimes, brown or dark ruby or something like that, and even black. So if you walk around in certain spaces, you're going to notice the colors that show up in those spaces. So those are the conventions of the colors. So the bright, lively colors such as red and orange, they're usually, associated with vitality and with power. And the colors such as blue and green, maybe darker colors, they're like more stable colors. They're like stability, and green one, especially for growth. We can see it a lot in finance, but we also see it a lot in like eco-friendly products, natural products, and so on. So these are kind of the colors that appear in these certain spaces. And then you have to decide, okay, do I want to play by the same rule book as the others, or do I want to shake things up and do something else? Because if every other bank, for instance, is using blue color, then maybe I don't want to use the blue color for my new bank. Maybe I want to use purple or magenta or lime green or something that is unseen in this space. So you have to think about, do I want to stand out? Do I want to or defy expectations? In that case, I may choose a color that is quite different. So the main brand color, like the one that's going to be in your logo, on the wide spaces, on your posters, and so on. And that depends also on the values. So there are some values that are going to match up with some of the colors. If you have growth and health, that's usually going to be maybe on the green side, maybe some of the orange. If you want to do like power and strength, that's maybe going to be, the color red. If you want the color of, love and community, maybe that is going to be on the purple, pink side. I don't know. I mean, I'm just improvising here, but that's the gist of it. And also, you have to think about who are your competitors. So that's what I mentioned. Like if your competitors are using certain colors, you don't want to be too similar to them, because you don't want people to mix you up, because that's not good for anyone. That's not good for you or for them. If people confuse you for someone else's business because you're using a color that's too similar. Yeah. So that's essentially how you find that first main color. You pick up on what is the qualities that we're trying to portray, what colors are communicating those qualities. Like if something is fresh and youthful, maybe that's going to be very bright neon green, neon yellow, neon orange. If you want to do something calm, peaceful, that's maybe going to be muted pastel, dark purple, dark blue or some. And then you have to pick up a harmonious palette that is going to work well together with that main color, because you can't just use one color. It's not enough. You need to have a whole palette of different shades. So definitely to include some neutral colors such as gray or beige or something like that is going to kind of tie everything else together, because especially if you're looking like a website or a brochure or something, you need somewhere to rest your eyes. You can't look at very strong colors the entire time. So you can use like your main color, your neutral colors, and then a few other accent colors that are harmonious with it. And usually we use color theory. So there are color schemes that are used. For instance, there is the triad. Those are the three colors that are set in the form of a triangle on this rainbow circle. So if you imagine if you had a rainbow, but it didn't end like in a half circle, but it extended all the way like a full circle. Yeah. And then you have little configurations on this circle, which are the triad, the tetrad, the complementary colors, which are the opposite. And then you have the split complementary, which is or almost the opposite, but a little under an angle. So there are these little tricks that we kind of use to find out which colors would be harmonious, but also, I don't rely always on those. I'm going to customize it a bit, but that's usually a good starting point. And there are lots of tools that, for example, the Adobe Color tool is a good tool to play with. If anyone wants to, test out different color palettes, you can just go there. It's free. And I think it's color.adobe.com. And there's this circle there with these little sliders, and you can create your own color palettes that way. And it's quite fun.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. As you're describing it, in my mind, there's like a color wheel, isn't there? That's
yes.
picturing as your,
Yeah.
It's powerful, isn't it? One of the reasons why I asked, partly curiosity, but also, colours make such a difference in, like you say, communicating mood or attitude or something. And we have to be specific.
Yes, we have to be intentional. Yeah. Because picking your favorite color, it may work, it may not. It really depends. I know for me, for my personal brand, I did use, my favorite color, which is red. But when I'm working on some side projects, which are not my name, but are, a group project, then I'm going to go outside of what I would choose for myself. And I will think about what is the mood? What is the intention? What is the message? And then I'm going to choose the colors that represent that message well. And especially when I'm working with clients, we always think about, what are we communicating to our customers? That is super important because the wrong color is going to give the wrong impression. That is the easiest thing to differentiate. So that's designing a logo is hard. Like if you want to do it properly. But color, just choosing a color is the simplest thing that anyone can do on their own. It's really easy. You just go on the coloradobe.com and choose a color, and there you go. You put it everywhere. And that's really simple. But you have to choose carefully what color is appropriate for the message that you're trying to send.
Yeah. It's a lot of wisdom there. I can see the whole design artistic part of you is very clear with how to communicate that. So well done. Thank you. That makes it a lot better.
Well, thank you.
Maybe we're sort of very near the end of our time chatting today, but just maybe the last question I would ask you, you sort of touched on it a little bit about having certain challenges when you first started your business, and just so people can empathize with you and maybe so we all feel a little better, but just any specific challenge that you had to overcome that you'd be happy to share with us?
Oh, absolutely. So the things that I'm talking about today, they really are informed by all the mistakes that I did when I was starting in business. So I don't think any lesson is truly learned until you learn it from your own experience. And so there was, when I was starting out, I was also accepting every kind of project that came my way. It was really in the beginning of when you're starting out, you're not able to be as choosy maybe as you are when you're starting to get more traction in your business. And so I wasn't vetting my clients so carefully as I do today. And there was a situation where I signed a contract with someone who ended up to be like a nightmare client. And it was so ridiculous because so many things went wrong in just one project that I was that it really got my attention. Like when you have these very small things nagging on you spread over a long time, then it kind of goes under the radar. But this was a situation where things kept slapping me in the face the entire time. So there were miscommunication issues. There were, the client was said one thing and then went back and said, no, I never said that, and so on. So, there were all these problems where also we agreed to something in a meeting, and then later, we agreed to an extra charge because there was an extra revision in a project, and then they went back and said, but why did you charge me extra later? But we agreed. And I really thought, is this person having some sort of issues? Because I'm not sure what's going on. When you're not sure if you're dreaming, is it real? Is it what's happening? And I've never had that happen before or afterwards. So that was a very difficult experience. And that's where I learned really, it was a very visceral learning. This is what it looks like when you work with someone who doesn't appreciate what you do, who doesn't recognize you as an expert in your field, who is not sharing your values, who really is not the sort of person that you should be spending time with because they are not good for you. They are making you nervous. They are making you question yourself. They are making you question everything. That is not the sort of person that you should be working with. And really, I made the mistake the moment that I accepted the project, because there were red flags before that I chose to ignore, that I shouldn't have. And that taught me the red flags are there for a reason. I should not ignore red flags. If I have even a bit iffy thought about a project, it's better to say no than to commit to a project, which, it's a long project. For me, projects last a month or two. So that's like a month or two of my life that I'm giving to this project. So that's really a long time to stay with something that is so toxic. So I am now more careful about accepting work with clients. I really need to have a good feeling about them. I need to feel like we're on the same page. I need to feel like we can have a good conversation. I need to feel like we're all open and honest and clear. And there are certain boundaries that I put in place. And if I see that the other person is pushing against those boundaries, that I know it's not going to be a good time for any of us. This is the thing to keep in mind. Business is a two-way street, and both parties need to be satisfied. Both parties need to get value out of this, and neither one should be, on top. So it's not that the person who has money does not dictate how you do things. Yeah. They're free to go work with someone else, and you are free to work with people you want to work with. So really, for me, that has been one very valuable learning experience. And now I'm really passionate about teaching other people to keep healthy boundaries, to know what you stand for, and to be very vocal about what you stand for, because that is the best way to attract the right people to you.
Yeah. A lot of wisdom in that. You're right. We learn things the hard way sometimes, don't we? And then it becomes a lot more,
ingrained.
Yeah. No, that's really good. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure everybody's nodding as they listen to it.
I'm sure everyone has experienced a bit of that. Not many people have experienced like that to this dramatic extent, but I'm sure everyone can kind of remember a time when they had a very unpleasant experience that really, it does teach you a lot. So I'm grateful for the experience, at least.
Just once. Yeah,
just one. One is enough. One is enough.
Absolutely. No, that's really good. We do need to wrap it up here, but before I do, what's the best way for people to sort of touch base with you? The website would be the first step?
Yes. My website, neladunato.com, it has everything that I do. So whether you're interested in reading some free articles, there are over 200 articles on my blog, and about 50 of them are on branding. And there's also the free chapter of my book, The Human-Centered Brand, and the bonus workbook and some other free bonuses. So you can check that out. And of course, if you have any questions, you're going to find some easy ways to contact me on my website and through social media. So, I'll be happy to chat if anyone has any questions about branding or, creative business in general.
Okay. Yeah. No, that sounds really good. Yeah. So for everybody listening, who wouldn't get a free chapter on branding and marketing? Definitely, I would recommend you go to the website, find out all the resources that Nela's put on there as the first step. But think about your branding. Think about what is it that we've spoken about today that can really help and impact you with regards to maybe making a change in how you portray your services, your products, the way you brand with colors, your marketing, all of that sort of stuff. It's such a key thing. It's a very visual world out there. So to really optimize how we communicate. If you want to have a chat with Nela, as she said, find out what she can do to help longer term implement things in your business. But maybe the first step is just get the first chapter of the book. Surely that's a no-brainer, isn't it? But we do need to wrap it up for now, though. Thank you, Nela, for sharing your time with us today and your expertise. It's been very insightful. So I appreciate that personally. And I know everybody listening will also benefit from it. So it's been really good. For everybody else, make sure you put something into action. Don't just let this be another podcast where you don't do anything about it. But start thinking about stuff and taking action as you need to. And with that, we will leave you and catch you next time. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to Yeukai Business Show. We will be back to bring you more episodes with success stories and advice straight from the experts. Want more? Check out www.yukaibusinessshow.com. Get your free trial of our virtual assistant service today. Just visit www.worldoutsourcingsolutions.com. Quote WOS18 or send us an email at support@worldoutsourcingsolutions.com.